everything about ships and sailing. Well, almost everything. For such a seemingly small book, there's quite a lot of information in this eyewitness visual dictionary of ships and sailing put out by DK. I like the sound of the shiny coated hardcover. Sounds like rain. Let's look at this book together and enjoy the sounds of paper and learn about ships from the earliest times to the present. In the blue of the sea and the sky, as darkness falls and the stars come out to guide us to peace and relaxation. A stropped block, tail, sheave, strop, crown, seizing, thimble. Look at all of the things that we will see in this book and more. A ketch, a gunship, a frigate, a diving suit, a dinghy, and some block and tackle. A sextant, log register, compass, Chesapeake Bay Bateau, lugger, reed boat, Dutch triple fiddle block. And there are the contents. The first boats. Early people needed boats to travel, to trade and hunt and to fish. They propelled their boats by hand, paddle, bunting, pole, or simple sail. This reed-built caballito was paddled through the surf of South American coastal waters. It's probably this one, the Peruvian caballito, coastal reed boat. More like a float than a boat, and the circular Iraqi gaffa was used to carry cargo. Haitian dugout canoe, Egyptian boat with woven planking, is a model of an Egyptian boat with a square sail, and we can see the basic parts of the boat now are named: a mast out of acacia pole, yard arm, yard, lashing, the head of the sail. And here we have the clew and the foot of the sail, and the leech. The sail is made of papyrus. The steersman, and this is the rudder blade, the rudder shaft, the rudder saddle where the rudder sits, and the sweep, which is lashed to the rudder support, and the steersman can turn it to steer. There are some oars as well. Gunnel, which is this side of the boat, and the prow, the forestay, and there we have what looks to be a sheet. And there's our halyard and the downhaul. Halyard there, tied to the mast. Let's get a bit bigger in ancient Greece. There's a Roman anchor. And this ship is much bigger. In the expanse of empires of Greece and Rome, powerful fleets were needed for battle, trade, and communication. Greek galleys were powered by a sail and many oars. A new armament, the embolos or the ram, was fitted onto the galley bow, and ramming duels required fast and maneuverable boats, which is attested in the Battle of Salamis, which we can read about in great detail. The poop deck and poop break. This is a raised deck. And the reason it's called poop is because the Latin pupis was used to describe this raised deck in the stern of a ship. Also, this one has twin rudders, gubernacula, and you might remember the word for the helmsman or steersman in Latin is gubernator, where we get our modern word governor. And there's gubernator. And we already have a mast with a square rigged sail, and the sheets going back. You can see how far the oars sweep to maneuver this boat. And this is a Viking longboat, very shallow allowed to go up rivers and also to be portaged more easily. Roughly 500 to 1000 AD, commonly called the Dark Ages, the longships of Scandinavia were among the most feared sights for people of Northern Europe. This is a court seal showing a three-masted, square-rigged ship. Seals of port towns and royal courts through the ages provide a record of contemporary ship design. This seal shows a European craft from somewhat later than the Viking period, with fighting platforms or castles, which is where we get forecastle or forecastle, and the addition of more masts and sails changed the character of the medieval ship, and the steering oar is replaced by a rudder. You can see the Viking ships still had a steering oar and a tiller, which was usually on or always on the starboard side. Hence, in German we call it Steuerbord or steering side. And as we move forward in time to the Middle Ages and on through the Renaissance, we have ships for war and trade. From the 16th century, ships were built with a new form of hull. You see, the hull becomes slightly thinner and sleeker, constructed with a cavil or edge-to-edge planking, as opposed to the overlap planking that we get with the other ships. So we have a very smooth side of the ship. Warships of the time, like King Henry VIII of England's Mary Rose, boasted awesome firepower. This shape of the hull helped stabilize a ship to carry many pounds of cannon and shot, and also to fire it. New astronomical tools helped medieval sailors to find their way. Cross staves and astrolabes were used to measure the altitude of the sun or stars. You might remember the video from the study on Renaissance navigation. I'll put the link there if you're interested in learning more. And here we have the parts of this very large four-masted warship. There's our mainmast, and you would attach masts forward and on top of the mainmast to increase the height of the sail area. There's our mainmast and main yard, main topcastle, main top sails on that mainmast. Later, they even had more masts, and in a storm they would ship them, put them down, so the men were always going aloft to attach or detach these topmasts to get every puff of wind, because maneuverability was key. And here we have a mizzenmast and our Bonaventure mast and the foremast, and here our bowsprit. A sail could be put there as well, and there are all of our cannon. Port bow anchor, there's the rudder, the keel, and the stern post. The 18th century saw the expansion of sail. Look at the keel and that sleek hull that's shaped along there, and all of the gun ports. By the 18th century, sailing ships had become fast and effective floating fortresses. The navies of the North European powers competed with each other by building heavily armed fighting ships called men of war. The distinctive round stern of the ship here, with its open gallery, balcony, and elaborate wood carving, is typical of the period. Hulls around this time were semicircular in cross-section. That sort of, you can see here, without the keel. There's another from the rear, and we can see the gallery there. Although many boat designers were soon to return to the V-shaped hulls used by the Vikings, ships of this period carried more sail than ever before. A labyrinth of rigging supported the masts and yards, from which the profusion of square sails were set. Ships grew higher as extra masts were fitted above the lower, and the bowsprit became longer to allow the ship to carry staysails, spritsails, and jibs. Ships went into battle in single file, so that broadsides from multiple decks of guns would have maximum effect. Ships were classified by rates, the rating of a vessel depending on how many guns it had. A first-rate ship had more than 100 guns. These guns fired solid round shot, usually made of iron, and there are all of the sails. The top being the top gallant, the jibs above the bowsprit and below the sprit sails. What a beautiful, beautiful ship. And here we can see the construction of the decks of a ship of the line. This 74-gun third-rater was a mainstay of British and French battle fleets in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. The biggest ships in the fledgling American Navy the same time were 44-gun frigates. The length of such a man of war was determined by the number of guns needed for each deck, allowing crews to man them. The gun deck of this vessel was about 170 feet long, or 52 meters. The deck planks have been removed in the model to show the number of beams needed to make the hull strong enough for these heavy guns, and also for the recoil. The power in firing them is enough to break a ship apart if it doesn't have the support of the water beneath it. Only timber with perfect grain was used. The upper deck was often open at the waist. There. But forward and aft were officers' cabins. The forecastle and quarterdeck carried light guns and provided platforms for handling the rigging and for reconnaissance. The ship's longboats or launches were carried on skids between the gangways. And there we have the ship from the bow, with our two anchors, catted anchor, hawse hole, where the anchor rope goes, the hawse, riband, hawse piece, and stem post for the keel. Here we have the rails and the figurehead, the cat block, and supporters. And from the stern, what a beautifully constructed ship here. Taffrail, screen bulkhead, and here the captain's quarters. During battle, these, walls would be taken down, or before battle, by the carpenter. Even the captain's cabin became part of the gun deck, if it was a small ship. Here are all the parts of a wooden ship, and the way the tree had to grow to get these certain parts. These are oaks, called compass timbers. Here we would use a deck beam, and these joins between large branches were used for the knees. It is said that there was a certain type of swamp oak in North America that was particularly hard and perfect for making ships. Look at this complex organization of perfect timbers, showing you how detailed and intricate the construction of one of these men of war. And now we move to iron ships. If you've ever been to any historic dockyard, you might have had the opportunity to go aboard a 19th century iron steamship which is quite something. A marvel of engineering. Iron parts were used in wooden ships as early as 1675, often in the same form as the wooden parts that they replaced. Eventually, as on the T-Clipper Cutty Sark, which was in its day the fastest ship ever built, iron standing rigging was found to be stronger than the traditional rope. The first ironclads were warships whose wooden hulls were protected by iron armor plates. Later, these ironclads actually had iron hulls. They are these riveted plates. This model is based on the British warship HMS Warrior, launched in 1860, and that one is in Portsmouth, and you can visit it. It's absolutely huge. It was the first battleship built entirely of iron. This one is an iron battle steamer, and I think I had my hand on that when we were talking about the T-Clipper Cutty Sark, which is up here. It did not have steam power, by the way, but it did have the iron rigging. And here is the propulsion paddle wheels and the engine that turns them, and propellers and the pattern. How a propeller works in the water. Propellers are more efficient than paddle steamers. They work better in rough water and are less vulnerable in collisions. The first propeller were two-bladed, but later 3- and 4-bladed versions were more powerful. The shape and pitch of the blades have also been refined over the years. Today, some of these propellers for these gigantic tankers are bigger than a giant truck or even a house. Here we are at the boat builder's yard, and we can see a little dinghy, or what would become the optimist dinghy. Often see a Q on the sail. A very versatile learning sailboat for many, many years, and is still used today in junior sailing clubs. Traditionally, most small boats were built in a painstaking way by softening and shaping tropical hardwoods, and by fastening the planks or strakes with copper rivets. Modern boats, in contrast, are often built of plywood or fiberglass, with epoxy resin glues and synthetic rope and sailcloth. Here you have all of these resins and glues, and your rigging and tackle, and tools, screws and rivets. And the parts of our dinghy, a mast, a sheet there. Our halyard here. The tack downhaul there. Yard tension downhaul for the downhaul there. Main sheet. Look at that, the launching wheel as well. And a slot for the tackerboard. Rigging. Most sailing ships have two types of rigging. Standing rigging. Ropes that are kept taut by turnbuckles or old-fashioned lanyards and deadeyes. Look at all of those. Referring to the ropes, wires, and chains that support the masts and yards. So your standing rigging would be the stays, the forestay, like this. You can change the set of the mast with these stays, but you usually don't do that very often, and not during sailing if you can help it. Also, it mentions the horizontal spars. And there is the second type of rigging, the running rigging, which includes types of block and tackle. Halyards and sheets used to hoist lower or trim sails. So the running rigging is the kind that you're going to be adjusting and pulling on, and it's going to take a lot of wear and tear. Sails. The old sailboats had rings around the mast, which allowed these square or triangular sails, depending on the boat, to be raised and lowered. And they had these beads, these parrel beads, around the rope to help them go up and down. There are two main types of sails. Old-fashioned square sails that hang from yards at right angles to the mast, and are powerful drivers with following winds. So if you've got the wind behind you, they can be very fast. Fore and aft sails are set parallel to the length of the boat, with the luff or the leading edge of the sail attached to a mast or stay. These are the triangular, or the ones that are attached to the mast. They're more efficient for all-round sailing, and almost all modern sailboats are rigged this way. Some fore and aft sails have a gaff at the head. This is a gaff. So a yard that begins at the mast and goes up. Marconi Rig sails are pointed at the top. So there we have a Marconi Rig. The bottom or foot of the sail is on a boom. Sails are made of strips of cloth sewn together. Cotton and flax were traditional sail materials, but these days there's mylar and kevlar. And here you can see the three main types of boats as well: ketch, lugger, and schooner. The ketch has a short mast towards the bow. The schooner, the ketch, has the short mast with gaff-rigged sails in the stern, whereas the schooner has the shorter mast towards the front. The lugger has a lug as a foresail, and the mainsail with a lugger topsail, which is quite strange looking. It's not a gaff, it's square. So those triangular sails at the top are the gaff sails. And you can see the lug goes across the mast, where these don't. And here we have some of the tools used for sail making. And look at that, a thumb hole. This is to put on your hand when you're making the cloth and sewing the cloth together. Man-powered craft. So these are paddle. There's a stroke cycle with a fixed seat, so one that the seat does not move forward and backward for your sculling, rowing. An outrigger canoe from the New Hebrides. And here's one with a moving seat. The sculling. It's a very long, thin boat. And the one you can watch all of the boat races at Henley, and of course the big one between Oxford and Cambridge. Here is one from Asia, a Bangladeshi dinghy. And the parts that hold the oars, the pintle, captive socket, shoulder, crutch plates, and the different kinds of oars. These ones are very pretty. And a coracle. You have to have the knack for paddling that to steer it properly. How to steer by the wind. Every seafarer must know his or her position at all times. When orders are given by the captain, they must be repeated and obeyed smartly. Bear away before the wind, or steer for the buoy dead ahead, for example. And here we have the points of the wind. A wind direction, downwind, or running. Wind on the starboard quarter, and wind on the port quarter, on a broad reach. It's got 155 degrees. And this is the no-go zone. If you point your boat any farther up into the wind, you will probably not go forward at all. So here you would be close hauled, close reach, and at 90 degrees on a beam reach. Directions to port or larboard. So these points are also correspondent to the points on a compass, as if the boat were the compass and the wind was the north. astern, and the same for starboard. And of course, there are the parts of the boat. We've got the windward side, where the wind is coming from, leeward side, dead ahead, and the wake. Across the ship is Othward's ships, astern, forward of the mast, towards the bow, and aft, behind the mast, towards the stern. Amidships is the beam, towards the middle of the ship. And here we have a very nice diagram of depth, water depth. We have the charted depth, which is from chart datum or the lowest recorded depth to the bottom. And the height of tide above that chart datum. Here is the draft of the boat. A sounding tells them how deep from the surface of the water to the bottom. A bottom profile. Water level. And these are the fathom shots. Navigation tools. There is our sextant. And here we have some more tools for finding your position and piloting your boat. For navigating, we need a clock for time, and we need to find position. Navigation is the art of guiding a ship safely between 2 points defined in terms of latitude and longitude. Sailors in early times relied on landmarks for direction, while the watchkeeper turned an hourglass to indicate how long the ship had been following a given compass course. Like the cross stave and the astrolabe, the sextant enabled sailors to measure their latitude by showing the angle between two known objects, or between a heavenly body and the horizon. And the chronometer allowed the mariner to calculate longitude accurately by comparing local time with a fixed time standard. So accurate clocks were important for early cartographers and navigators. Speed and distance run were found at sea by trailing astern a taffrail log. There we are. And there's the log there. So you count how many knots in the rope, or in more modern times, there'll be easier and more mechanical ways to do it. And there is a binnacle. No, it's not a Pokemon. Navigating a ship in waters where charted landmarks, lighthouses or buoys are visible is the art of piloting. Mariners have many aids to help them find their way when piloting. magnetic compass is based on the attraction of a magnet to the magnetic north. A round compass card rests on a pivot held steady by magnetism and marked with 360 degrees, which indicates the ship's course. This compass is usually housed in a binnacle, which is a wooden case, sometimes a very large one like on the Victory, and it has correctors that counter the magnetic distortion of an iron ship, which will be deviation. And if you're on a small sailboat, this deviation will be written in the ship's log. And here we have the lens for a lighthouse and different buoys and their meanings. This is a green starboard lateral cone buoy. And here we have a cardinal mark, a north cardinal, with black on the top and yellow on the bottom, or two cones. And this one is black and red with two balls, which is an isolated danger. The red and white is a safe watermark. And here are marked the depths on a rope, so different colors for the length when you drop the lead. So this is to find the depth the lead would be dropped. It's connected to the rope with the grommet, or the lead line with a grommet. And it's counted how many markers go down. 2 knots in the rope is 20 fathoms. Red is 17. White duck, 15 fathoms. Blue, 13. Leather with a hole in it is 10 fathoms. First red bunting is 7. And the first white duck is 5. And the first leather is 3. And the 2 strips is 2. So here we show what you would call out before the 2 fathom mark, and a quarter less 1. So that's 3/4 of a fathom. 1 fathom. A fathom and a quarter is, and a quarter 1. A fathom and a half, and a half 1. So you call out the fraction before the whole. Charts and piloting tools, and all of these tools for finding position. There's a nautical chart with depths written down. The globe, longitude and latitude, and rum lines. You can also go by the contour lines as well. Celestial globe, showing the constellations. Dividers, for plotting distance. like to see how to use the Breton plotter and charts, you can watch the RYA theory videos in the study. I'll put the link up there. Flags for signals. Also, the semaphore flags. 4 letters of the alphabet. The ensign, a national flag. This one is from Grenada. And here it shows where you put the different flags. Well, there's the royal standard there. There's the personal standard. And the royal personal standard right at the front of the ship. The command flag. The tops of the masts, main, and the ensign, and the pennants. A dressed ship. And there is the international signal flags used all over the world, and even inshore sailing clubs. And here's some more signals. We have the ship's bell, Morse code, a signal or very pistol with a wooden casing or cartridge. Maybe it's metal, but it looks like wood. It says the sleeve or the head is metal. Bosun's pipe, and the hand signals for standing on the gangway, coming alongside, making fast. Got a foghorn and navigation lights. And this lamp. It's like a spot. And the life raft. Very unpleasant place to be for many reasons. And all of the things, or the emergency kit that's stowed in the grab bag or the life raft bag. Hooks for fishing, fishing line, sponge, first aid, glue in the raft repair kit, signaling light and batteries, flare, drinking water, portable baler to bail water out. That's the bag it all comes in. And a rolled up sea anchor or kedge anchor to put down to stabilize the life raft. And very short paddles. Mooring and anchoring. Look at all of the different kinds of anchors. For different surfaces or different ways you want to anchor. For example, the mushroom anchor is a permanent mooring anchor, not one you're going to be pulling up and down all the time. And here we have twin bollards and a hawser. The different mooring rope bins and and a stone anchor with a rope hole. And all of the ropes and knots that are used in sailing vessels. Let's see if we can find some that we've done in this study. We've done a bowline. We've done a sheet bend. Look at these rat tails. We've done a half hitch, a square knot, and we've also done a clove hitch. You can see the different ways of strengthening or connecting ropes. Those sailors that spent a long time at sea would repair ropes and work with them. And here are the different materials for modern ropes. Different materials are used for different jobs that the rope would have. And here's some sailing kit. All of our waterproofs. The lifeline hooks onto the life vest. Deck boots for wet weather. Safety light, usually on the life vest or life jacket. And here we have a modern battleship, or an early 20th century battleship anyway. Look at all of the parts of that. The funnels, the mast there. It says that sea warfare in the early years of the 20th century, attacking vessels or defending a ship, was revolutionized by the introduction of Dreadnought-type battleships like this Brazilian vessel. These new ships combined the latest advances in steam propulsion, gunnery, and armor plating. This ship is the Minas Gerais, 500 feet long, or 152 meters. It was built at Elswick, England, and launched in 1908. Its chief armament was of 12-inch or 30-centimeter guns, firing shells with a 12-inch diameter. Fighting at sea. Look at that. These are the shells. And a submarine. And this is a frigate, the HMS Alacrity. Lots of destructive power on that one. And here we have some fishing boats. And these glass floats for the nets that for a long time were collector's items when people would find them. An echo sounder or fish finder and a fishing basket. There you can see the size of the propeller as well. And this is a trawler. Diving equipment. This is a small one-man submersible. And here's some diving gear. there's anything you'd like to see more of, do leave a comment. For now, be good to yourself